So one of the services we provide for our members is historical data. Now there's three different types of data that we provide. The historical match data, which contains match stats, team lineups and starting odds. We've got our expected goals data, which contains expected goals figures for each match and big chance data. We also provide a historical odds data as well. Now in this video I'm going to introduce the historical odds data and just give you some ideas for what you can do with that data. So if you click on the link, you'll see all the available leagues. I've downloaded some historical data just for the example video to show you, and just bring that spreadsheet up. So this is a sample of last year's League One data in the UK. You can see the format it's in. So when you access our data online, it's these columns that you'll get, A through V, and you can see that it contains country, league, home away team, the results, half-time and full-time, which is here, and then the opening and closing odds for the 1x2 market and the over-under market. Now in the course we explain how you can use this data to reverse engineer market ratings and find out the implied market supremacy ratings for each fixture. So that's the primary reason that you'll use this data. But there's a huge amount that you can do with this data, a great amount of analysis that you can do with this data just by letting your curiosity run wild and kind of investigating the data how you see fit. So an example here, this is very simplistic, but just to give you a basic example of what you can knock up with this data in a couple of minutes. So I've added three columns at the end here. So this first column is the important one. It's looking at whether the home team was a market mover or not. So if the home team was backed, and it's a simple if rule, and we're looking to see if the opening odds were greater or less than the closing odds. If they were greater than, if the opening odds were greater than, then it's a mover. And you can see that we've filled that all the way down for every fixture. I've added a second column to see if the home team won or not. So if we see two yeses, that means that the home team won and they were backed. And in this third column, I've introduced a percentage difference to find out how significant that opening odds to closing odds move was. If it's a positive percentage, that means it was backed. If it's a negative percentage, that means it was a drifter. And so let's just have a look at, we've got so 299 games in this sample that I've pulled from historic League One data. We can filter that to see if we can identify any significant trends. There may be something, there may be nothing. Let's have a look to see if significant moves are an indicator. So we might go greater than 10% move. Obviously reduces the sample significantly. The markets are relatively efficient in League One, so out of the 299 games, less than 10% were significant moves for the home team. We've got 22 games, and you can see all the moves there. Average move on these big selection, these big movers, 13%. Average closing price, you see down here, so 6 to 4. So the percentage move, as you might expect, is tending to happen on the bigger priced home teams. So the average opening price 290 into a starting price of 254. How successful are those home teams? So out of the 22, and this is a very small sample, so you're not going to read too much into this, but we'd expect around 40% to have won. And out of that sample, it's pretty much bang on, so 9 out of the 22 won. You're not going to read too much into that because of the sample size, but it just shows the way that you can kind of analyse this data. So maybe that gives you some ideas. So we've seen, Right, big home team outside prices. So the 290 was the average of the biggest movers into 250. So let's have a look. Is there an angle for big priced home teams? So we'll just clear that filter there, and maybe we'll look at home teams that open at greater than Pick'em. So pretty much greater than 280. So out of the 290 games, there's 64 games where there was a home team that opened at bigger than that price. How many times out of that 64 was the home team backed or shortened? Okay, so 34, so that's slightly over half. Is it significant? You'd want a bigger sample. A 6% move on average. If we remove this, yeah. All right. So there's no real insights to gain from that. But maybe you could see how it compares to short price home teams. So let's go. If they open up at 190, and what's the behaviour there? So home teams less than 190. Gets our sample down to 55. And how does that compare? Home team backed for 55. Alright, so that could be interpreted as significant. So 36 times out of 55 instances where the home team was opened at 190 or shorter, did that home team then go on to close at a shorter price? So your average open of 170, average close of 163. What could explain that? Weight of money from favourite backers, or is there an edge there? Is the market or the bookmakers with the opening prices, are they underestimating strong home team favourites in this division? There's a lower, or typically there's a lower home field advantage in these leagues. So are these moves indicative of teams that maybe are underestimated with the league average home advantage, but then it's built into the price before closing, or are there other trends at play? This is just an example of how you can use this data, and it's just thrown around some ideas of how you can investigate to identify trends or identify angles that either require further investigation over a bigger sample, or can be quantified to see if it's a positive expected value strategy, or any other way that you want to apply it to your betting. But what seems simple set of data, just opening and closing prices, can be used in many different ways to identify different interpretations and different angles within the market.